is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Let's go, baby.
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on the break.
with Nick Eatman, David Hellman, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Wednesday, November 25th, 2020, Season 16, Episode number 70. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We are live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We're going to get you guys ready for Cowboys versus Washington football team. That happens tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day. It's the annual Thanksgiving Day for the Cowboys. But before we get into that, and we're going to be bringing Bucky Brooks on here soon to talk a little bit about that matchup. Before we do, we got to catch up a little bit on the news of yesterday. Obviously, we didn't have a show. Pretty much everything was kind of shut down around here. There was no practice. There was no media availability. There was a medical emergency for one of the coaches, the strength and conditioning coach, Marcus Paul. He was rushed to the hospital. He is still in the hospital. We want to send our prayers and our well wishes to he and his family. But, Nick, I wanted to kind of first start off a little bit and talk about just kind of what he means to this team, because I know it's, as fans, they're probably out there, and that's probably not a name they've heard much, Marcus Paul. But when you talk about any team, the relationship between the players and the strength and conditioning coach is a unique and interesting one that I don't know if fans really can or really appreciate.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, because your strength coach and the player, it's a personal relationship. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. I mean, the defensive back coach can have the exact same plan and technique for all of the defensive backs. This is how you do it, Cheeto. This is how we do it. This is how we're going to do this, Jordan Lewis, all this. But the strength coach is totally different. He's got a design plan. I'm going to work with you because you need to gain 7 pounds. You need to lose 4 pounds. You need to work on your upper body strength or whatever it is. And so it is they have a chart. They come in. They have a routine. They work out with each other. That's the thing. It's not just like, hey, you need to do this. It's I'm working out with you. These guys work out thousands of times, throughout the season, multiple times a day. So it's a very unique experience, a very unique relationship that they have, and that's why I'm sure it's hitting home with those players, hitting them really hard this week.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you ever watched an NFL practice and you notice guys that were kind of training off to the sides, typically they'll have a strength and conditioning coach with them. And it's like you said, Nick, it's not they are standing there saying, okay, now I want you to run a 100-yard sprint. Like, they're running the 100-yard sprint with the player. And so they are training with these players. So the level of fitness of these guys, number one, is astronomical. But it is a relationship. It's a personal relationship. It's very similar. I think if a fan wants to kind of get an idea in their mind, if you've ever had a personal trainer, like he is the person or she is the person that's in your ear encouraging you. They're also the person that when you're trying to lag behind is saying, hey, man, I need you to pick it up. Let's go, right? So it is a very, very personal relationship, and it's one that I'm sure these players are feeling right now because of the fact that he did have this medical emergency, and I'm sure they are all thinking of him as they prepare for this game. Let's jump right in and talk a little bit about some of the injuries that the Cowboys are dealing with. There was one particular injury I wanted to get to. Anthony Brown. Dave, what do you know about the injury to Anthony Brown and his possibilities of being able to play this week?
What I know is that it happened in the game. He obviously, he went out in the second half. I think he went out in the fourth quarter. The news with Marcus has kind of thrown everything out of whack. The Cowboys didn't practice yesterday. Whatever they do on the field today, won't be much of anything, and it's also not open to the media. So we have even less of an idea of where he stands than we normally would. Mike McCarthy did say on Monday night that he's going to try to give it a go, but I feel like I'm in the dark as far as what his status is exactly. I guess we'll just have to see how he progresses and what it looks like as we get closer to game time.
We'll have to see the pool report today from the media, which is by Rob Phillips and
Is it Rob?
And Mickey. Yes.
Okay. Oh, it's the two of them.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It was 11:30 this morning, which is when our show is.
Yeah.
So
I saw them right before I was coming. That's
me
must
and,
be where
yeah,
we're going.
me and Dave couldn't do it, but Rob and Mickey are the pool reporters, so they'll be able to kind of tell us at least who's practicing and maybe what's going on.
Amber, what do you think they do? Let's assume for a second they can't get Anthony Brown ready to play on a short week coming off that injury. What do they do at cornerback if he can't play?
Well, this is going to be really interesting because now you're basically at the bottom of your depth chart here. And watching the game, I know last game there was a lot of confusion. You know, people were confused by the name Robinson when they got to see that on the field. And then you're like, oh, yes, finally we got to see Reggie Robinson doing some things. And then it's like, wait, no, it's Rashard Robinson. Then you're like, wait, who the heck is that? Who's that? So the guys that you have right now are guys that I feel that we don't necessarily get to talk much or see much of them. So based on what we did get to see from Rashard Robinson, it wasn't anything very impressive at all. So it's going to be a problem for the Cowboys, definitely in the secondary and the cornerback position, because right now just the level of talent is not quite there.
Are you guys starting to get concerned about Reggie Robinson and his development and where he was coming in? I mean, the fact that they're going this deep into their depth chart and he still is a guy that's inactive, you know, you kind of gave it a little bit of, okay, yeah, he's a rookie at the beginning of the year, but now they're deep into their depth chart because of injuries. Are you starting to get a little worried, Nick?
Yeah, I don't think they have any confidence with him as a cornerback, honestly, and I bet you he ends up playing safety because you know they need help at corner, and he's not. You know, they're having to get guys off other practice squads or their own practice squad. So it doesn't seem like they like I say several times before that they watch practice. They know that he's not ready. I mean, that they want to see him out there, but he's obviously not ready. The same goes with like Bradley and Nye. So you know, I mean, if they were ready, they would throw him out there.
Dave, from the standpoint of getting ready for the draft and covering the draft, as you do, and by the way, we are going to be starting up the draft show here in just a week or two, so you guys stay tuned for that. We got some interesting announcements to make on that too. That'll probably come up sometime next week. But anyway, Dave, based on what you guys saw coming out of the draft, was it your expectation that Reggie Robinson would be a player early on? Was it an expectation that he was going to need a year to kind of get his feet wet as far as playing cornerback? Because I know special teams was something that he did well in college. But where were your expectations relative to what you're seeing right now, him still being inactive this late in the season?
I mean, I don't know if my expectations were super high, but I thought he would have a role on the team. I mean, a fourth-round pick, it's a common refrain among draft dorks. The draft is 4 rounds long. Like, your first 4 picks, the first 4 rounds are guys that you're expecting to have a role on your team. Everything else is kind of a roll of the dice. But, I mean, you know, think back through recent history. Obviously, Dak Prescott was a 4th-round pick. Anthony Hitchens is a guy that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Like, if you're drafted in the 4th round, I expect you to be good enough. Damian Wilson's another one. Like, again, maybe not an amazing player right off the bat, but I expect you to be in uniform on game day. Absolutely. So, you know, I never thought Reggie would be a regular in the starting lineup, but I thought he could carve out a role on special teams and maybe work his way into some defensive snaps, and it just hasn't been the case. I'm not like alarmed in the long term. I mean, Donovan Wilson couldn't get on the field last year either, but it's definitely disappointing that he hasn't had any kind of role at all. Like, that's weird to me for a 4th-round pick to just not be able to get onto the field at all.
Did you see anything in your scouting of him going into the draft that would say, yeah, this is probably what the problem is because he had struggles with this in college?
Well, it's interesting. Well, I mean, I could sit here and tell you, yeah, like he's a raw prospect. You know, his coverage ability needs work. But I agree with Nick. Like, I think I'm at the point where, like, I assume he's not playing cornerback anymore because we saw, you know, they shifted him to safety some in training camp. They were asking him to do a lot of that. Maurice Linguist said in August that they want to cross-train him to do everything. But, I mean, look at the state of the cornerback depth chart. I mean, if he can't get snaps or even get a uniform at cornerback right now, then I assume he's just not a cornerback. Like, how could he be? So I think he's in the middle. Sorry, Nick. I think he's in the middle of a transition to safety. And A, they don't need him as much because their safety depth is okay. And B, he's probably even less ready for that.
Yeah, I was thinking along those lines, just how bad is C.J. Goodwin at corner? He plays every game, and he's a really good special teams player. They have all these issues, and it's like never once throw him out there. Yeah. So these,
you stay over on special teams and make plays there.
I do wonder. We forget about him a lot because it's been so long. But Maurice Kennedy, was an opt-out player, and he was a guy that they brought in and mainly to help with special teams, but he also was a reserve corner. So that's a big loss for him because he would have helped obviously have another guy out there. So Savion Smith and Robinson. I don't know. Was Robinson terrible? This guy in the game? He was going up against Adam Thielen one-on-one.
He had some moments that you were like, wow, okay, he got beat. But, that's what you kind of expect when you're at this part of your depth chart, right? He's not going to be perfect.
What? I don't understand why Cheeto doesn't just go with Adam Thielen. Like, around the goal line, you got him. Veteran, crafty. I understand you got the LSU rookie on the other side that's kicking everyone's ass, but I'm just saying.
But in the red zone, they love going to Thielen, right?
I would have liked to have Cheeto there, not a guy that was on, practice squad earlier in the day.
I agree. All right, we're going to take an early...
Go ahead,
Dave.
I just wanted to say, Rashard Robinson wasn't amazing, but I think he gets a bad rap because Thielen beat him so badly on that second touchdown. And that's what stands out when you watch the game is the coverage just didn't look very good. But I don't think he was awful throughout the game, but they picked on him when it mattered.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Bucky Brooks of NFL Network. He's going to talk to us about the Washington football team versus the Dallas Cowboys. We'll do that when we come back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
There's nothing as unique as our eyes, which is why Essilor pioneers ways to make lenses as unique as you. Verilux for super sharp vision, Essential Blue for protection, and Crizal for freedom from glare. 3 cutting-edge solutions in a single unique lens. So whatever your needs, insist on Essilor. Visit your local Essilor experts and find the perfect lens for you. See more, do more, Essilor.
Since 1865, Stetson hats are American-made with pride right here in Texas. And Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Want to show your Texas and team pride too? You can. By purchasing your own Stetson, you can look just like how the flag guys do on field at every home game. Stetson hats, the official crown of all self-respecting Cowboys, and your favorite football team.
Get yours today at shop.dallascowboys.com or at stetson.com.
I'm Jay Novacek, former tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Back in the day, I was the guy who always got the tough yards, and that's why I run with John Deere today. In fact, I have a John Deere 3025E tractor that can handle any yard work I need to do, even the tough yards way out back. So if you have 1 acre or 1,000, John Deere has the equipment that's just right for you. Visit a John Deere dealer today and run with us. We are the official tractor provider of your Dallas Cowboys.
Dear, it's 1908. Don't you think we should get electricity?
And stop using candles to see at night.
It's just electricity lights up the room fast. It's more reliable than candles blowing out, and people seem to love it nationwide.
Well, candles are...
Dear, did you just run into the wall?
Nope. May I have a new candle, please?
Historically, switching to new technology is a no-brainer. Today, it's AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure, and nationwide. Switch to AT&T 5G. It's not complicated. 5G requires compatible plan. May not be in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
Don't miss the virtual Christmas extravaganza presented by Albertsons and Tom Thumb. The most electrifying holiday show of the season can be watched on Dallas Cowboys Facebook and Twitter this Friday, November 24th at 6 p.m. Christmas extravaganza.
Make sure you check that out. Our guy Ted has done a phenomenal job on this video, so make sure you check that out. Why are you looking? Why are you doing that?
Because like we were in a meeting with him, we're in a meetings in July. Like, Ted, what do you got? He's like, just working on Christmas. So here we are. We're here.
But it's good. It's really good. I watched the video. It's a really, really good video. So if you need some help getting into the Christmas spirit, then this will do it for you. Just jump on with your family on Friday, pull it up on the TV, and take a look. All right, you might want to check out the Cowboys Connected TV app. That may be a good way for you to watch it on your television so the whole family can join in. All right. Let's jump into our conversation with Bucky Brooks of NFL Network.
I can't even get on this show every day, and get hooked up to WebEx. You think I can hook that up?
It's not that hard, Nick. I'll hook you up later. Like, it's not that hard. All right, Bucky, welcome to the show, man. It's good to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Let's start off first with obviously this is a team that the Cowboys, Washington football team is a team the Cowboys have already faced. How much better is this Washington offense with Alex Smith than it was with Kyle Allen or Dwayne Haskins?
It's weird because it's really a push. When you look at the numbers are about the same between Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith. I mean, with the exception of the completion rate. But the production and all that other stuff, it's about the same. It was actually more productive with Kyle Allen. Some of that might have been the teams that they were facing. The thing that you get from Alex Smith is not necessarily the numbers. It's the steadying influence of having a veteran at quarterback. He's played a bunch of games. He's been a Pro Bowl player. He is able to kind of steady that shit. The thing about the Washington football team, they have two guys. They have Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson. And those are the guys that the ball has to go to for them to be able to score points. Logan Thomas will make a play, but really it's those two guys. And so if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you focus on don't let Terry McLaurin take you over the top, don't let him have an explosive play in the passing game, and find a way to corral Antonio Gibson, they have a hard time scoring points. The points come from the fact that their defense is their best offense. They set them up with short fields. They create scoring opportunities, and they're able to cash in on that. But this is not a very prolific offense that the Cowboys are facing.
Bucky, looking at the rest of the team and just a more general question, what would be some areas of improvements or some areas where they actually got worse when you compare to the last time that the Cowboys met with them?
The first game was such a weird game. One, Kyle Allen kind of played out of his mind for a minute. They hadn't played very, very well to that point, and then they decided that that's going to be the best offensive showing that they displayed. I think where the team has gotten better, Antonio Gibson has really assumed the full-time role in terms of being in the backfield. They're finding a way to get him the rock. He leads them in touches and rushing attempts, rushing yards, scrimmage yards, rushing touchdowns. He has the most by any rookie in the league. And then Terry McLaurin he has the fourth most receiving yards of anyone in the NFL. I think what Scott Turner has done, he's decided I'm going to get the ball to my best players, and I think if I get them the ball enough, something good will happen. And that's the difference, because really there hasn't been an emergence of another player that really would be noteworthy enough where the defense really has to account for him.
Bucky, I definitely want to talk about Washington's pass rush, and I'm sure we're going to, but this is what I can't get off my mind right now going into this game. You played in the NFL. You've been around the league for a long time. So you think back a month to that game, the John Bostic hit on Andy Dalton, we made so much of the lack of response. The guys, the team got dogged for it in the news for weeks. He didn't get suspended, et cetera, and now you play him again. Like, I'm not trying to stir anything up, but what's the residual effect of that? And as a player, is that on your mind going into this game? Like, are we going to see the Cowboys try to send a message with this guy, or is it you just move past it?
I don't know if they're necessarily trying to send a message with them, but I think what has happened over the last month with the Cowboys, I think all those things that were floated out there that their coaches and the players said they didn't hear, they've heard and they've made changes. They're playing harder. They're playing with more effort. There's definitely a level of urgency that didn't exist early in the season, and the physicality has gone up. Now, sometimes the way you change the physicality of the team is you urge them and encourage them to do it. Other ways you do it is you change personnel. And Donovan Wilson has been a huge addition to the team because he is the enforcer in the middle of the field. And it made a difference. After you hit Dalvin Cook, the game changes. And so early in the game, somebody has to send a message by making a big hit. Look, I can talk about X's and O's all day. This is a physical game, and the team that out-hits the other team is the one that typically wins. And when the Cowboys have made a concerted effort to be a team that is physical, to run to the ball and lay these big shots on their opponents, they have played better defense, and I think that's what it has to be. It has to be a very physical affair.
Bucky, this team is going to practice maybe for an hour before this game, be on the field, on Wednesday, because of the events that have happened this week and just the short week in general. Do you feel like the fact that they know Washington, that will help with that? Or that maybe you need a game plan, but you are familiar with the team, or do you think that a lack of practice is going to be evident?
No, I actually think it may help them. It may help them because it may force the coordinators to do fewer things as opposed to putting more stuff in. When you play on a short week like you play, even if it was normal circumstances, maybe Monday is your off day, you do a little work on Tuesday, there's a walkthrough on Wednesday, and then you go play. So there's not a lot of chance for a new install. I think if anything, you take your best plays and you just roll with your best plays. You'll make some adjustments over the course of the game. But I think this is one where you just line up, you put the ball out there, and you go play. And I think for the Cowboys, when they've done that and really used a scaled-down version of their game plans, they play better because you guys play faster because they're not thinking.
Hey, Bucky, I want to take you back to last week's game a little bit, and I want to get your thoughts on how you thought Connor McGovern played at right guard versus Minnesota. And as a secondary question, do you think that the move of Zach Martin to right tackle makes this offensive line good enough to be able to manage this really, really good pass rush from Washington?
Yeah, so let's start with the second question first. Absolutely. Zach Martin going to right tackle has absolutely helped the offensive line. Because what happens, like early, the struggles were, you had young guys playing out there. You had Brandon Knight, you had Terrence Steele, you had two undrafted players that were very young, inexperienced, and so they're getting worked over. And once the quarterback starts getting hit, it changes the dynamic. Even though Cam Irving isn't the best player, when you pair him with Zach Martin, you have experienced players who kind of understand how to use what I call their neighbors. They understand the dirty tactics. They understand by body position where the guard will be. And so they can kind of funnel some of those guys into body help that isn't legitimate help. The reason Connor McGovern played better is because you surrounded him with two veteran players. You have Joe Looney on the inside. You have Zach Martin on the outside. And because you're playing guard, the neighborhood is tight. All the houses are right on top of each other. And so unless you're playing an A-level player like an Aaron Donald, you're not as exposed because you have guys who are there and you can hold up. And because the Cowboys also went to a quick rhythm passing game, the ball was out, the offense flowed better. And so I think it's a combination of factors. Yes, the veteran offensive line, because I think when I looked at it, like 219 starts, the four guys outside of Connor McGovern have combined for. And then you have Kellen Moore, who is finally leaning into a more ball control offense with Andy Dalton under center. So they ran it, they threw the ball quick, and they were able to avoid the negative plays.
Okay.
I want to know your thoughts on this. We saw how physical the Cowboys defense was last Sunday, and this is a point that Derek brought up, I think, on Monday. And just the whole idea of having a short week, the fact that they played so physical and then having to come back. I mean, when that happens, are you expecting the defense to be able to bring back that same kind of energy, or could this be a game where we maybe see somewhat of a decrease in that aspect?
Well, the good thing, the Washington football team has the same challenge in terms of the short days. Typically, when you play, you don't start feeling good until Thursday anyway. And so it'll be a little different. I think the guy that you have to look at is how does Ezekiel Elliott perform? I do wonder if early in the game, maybe Tony Pollard gets a few more carries because Zeke had a hefty workload against Minnesota. So you want to keep him involved, and you kind of want to get it to that number where he had 21 carries. But maybe this is one where they combine to have those 35 rushing attempts, and maybe it's 16 or 17 for Zeke and 13 or 14 for Pollard. Maybe it's a little different because you're trying to spell them, because I will say the heavy workload for the running back is probably different than any other position on the field. He was in a bunch of car crashes on Sunday. This may be a week where you see a little more Tony Pollard, because Tony Pollard could be a little fresher because he certainly hasn't had the amount of carries that Zeke has had.
I would love for you to correct me if I'm wrong, so please do, because I see the stats and it says that Washington has the best pass defense in the NFL, and I don't think I believe that that's actually true. All due respect to those guys, I just don't think I believe it. So, is that more about their front? Is it more about them putting quarterbacks on the ground? And if the Cowboys do a better job of protecting Andy Dalton, is that as favorable a matchup as I think it is, or am I wrong?
Oh, no, you're correct. I had an old coach say the pass rush affects the coverage far more than the coverage affects the pass rush. And what the Washington football team have, they have a dominant pass rush. They have 32 sacks. That's tied for third most in the NFL. And then they have 5 former first-rounders on their front. There's nothing exotic about what they do up front. I mean, it's a high school defense. They want to rush forward. They want to play with 7 in coverage. And they're simply saying, we're better than you, and you can't double-team all of our guys. So if you drop at the pass 35 to 40 times, our guys will eventually win. And so what happens now with Zach Martin, I think the guy who really has to wear it will be Cam Irving, because Chase Young only has 3.5 sacks, but his impact exceeds what you see on the stat sheet. He's the most explosive and dynamic rusher that they have. And if you have to begin to devote extra attention to him, that's when Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan and those interior guys are able to get loose. And so it'll be interesting to see how Kellen Moore elects to deal with Chase Young. I know they want to throw it quick and those things, but in these obvious passing downs, what do you do to slow down Chase Young? Can Cam Irving hold up, or do they have to do other stuff? And if they have to do other stuff, then it doesn't bode well for the other guys, because the one-on-one matchups could then tip to the Washington football team's favor.
You know, earlier you talked about the Washington offense almost with Terry McLaurin, and you said he's really their only receiver. So tell me why you wouldn't travel Cheeto with him. I think I might know the answer to this, but like, what happens if you do that? What's the domino effect for the rest of the defense and the other corners?
Well, the only thing, the thing about traveling is good in certain instances, but it depends on the IQ of the rest of your secondary. Because when you travel one guy and he goes, it then can change the assignments of the other guys in the back end. And if you have an inexperienced group or a group that doesn't communicate as well, you end up having more missed assignments and blown coverages because people are in unfamiliar situations. What you could do, because Mike Nolan is a quarters coverage guy, and typically the cousin of quarters is what they call quarter half, where they play cover 2 on one side, they roll up, and they're basically a double teaming one half and playing quarters on the other half. I think that might be the strategy. We haven't seen it enough, but if he is giving them problems, if Terry McLaurin is giving them problems, you could see more rolled up coverage to his side and say, Alex Smith, throw to the other side, because we don't believe the guy on the other side can actually win.
All right, Bucky, we got to the point of the show where we want to know what you think is going to happen this tomorrow, Cowboys versus Washington football team. Who wins and why?
Oh, I think what has happened now, I think the Cowboys can sniff the postseason. They can sniff that they have a chance to win the division. I think we'll continue to see the best effort from them. Even though on paper the defense didn't play as well against Minnesota in terms of the numbers, I think we all can sit and say that they have played better over the last 3 weeks. Against a team like Washington, I think the defense should be able to hold up and do their end. The big thing will be turnovers. If Andy Dalton can take care of the ball, if Ezekiel Elliott doesn't put it on the ground, I think over time they will wear down the Washington football team. I expect the Cowboys to win. I think this will be a fourth quarter affair that'll be decided in the fourth quarter, but I think the Cowboys win, and I think it kind of changes the direction of how they think about their team going down the stretch, because I think they feel like they can have a legitimate shot to go on a run.
All right, Bucky, we appreciate it. We're going to we'll talk to you again next week as we start getting ready for the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to take our final break and come back. We got some questions for these guys about this matchup, Washington football team versus Dallas Cowboys. We'll be right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
We're back with a tasty treat that's sweeping airwaves and taste buds. It's new Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda. Let's take a listen.
Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda's here. A new combo that's music to my ears, okay. Let's play. Cream soda and Dr. Pepper time. Pour it in a glass of ice.
Ah, music to my ears and mouth. New Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda.
A delicious duet.
There's nothing as unique as our eyes, which is why Essilor pioneers ways to make lenses as unique as you. Verilux for super sharp vision, Essential Blue for protection, and Crizal for freedom from glare. 3 cutting-edge solutions in a single unique lens. So whatever your needs, insist on Essilor. Visit your local Essilor experts and find the perfect lens for you. See more, do more, Essilor.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way. Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
Dear, it's 1908. Don't you think we should get electricity?
And stop using candles to see at night.
It's just electricity lights up the room fast. It's more reliable than candles blowing out, and people seem to love it nationwide.
Well, candles are...
Dear, did you just run into the wall?
Nope. May I have a new candle, please?
Historically, switching to new technology is a no-brainer. Today, it's AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure, and nationwide. Switch to AT&T 5G. It's not complicated. 5G requires compatible plan. May not be in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
The Dr. Pepper Big 12 Championship returns to AT&T Stadium on Saturday, December 19th, when the top 2 football teams in the Big 12 Conference face off. Tickets are on sale now at SeatGeek.com. Get yours before they sell out. Cyclone.
Welcome back. It is the final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. And we're getting some breaking news here that Dave just brought up. It looks like the Ravens game that was supposed to be played tomorrow night, Steelers versus Ravens, is going to be pushed back maybe till Sunday, which creates an interesting thing for the Cowboys because then that means they get the Ravens on a short week and potentially without several of their players who are right now in the COVID protocol because they have tested positive, including 2 of their, I think their 2 top running backs. This thing's starting to look like it might be actually giving the Cowboys a little bit of extra love going into a game where they are not going to be favored to win.
Well, I mean, yes, if they play like that, it would be a 4 days rest. But I mean, it's still the same amount of games within 10 days.
True.
I mean, because Cowboys get theirs early, and then they got to play it on the back end. So, but yeah, I mean, and also facing Pittsburgh, we talked about this before. Facing Pittsburgh, a very physical team, and
that's always a physical matchup.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. Right, to see what happens there.
All right, we're going to go ahead and have some questions for you guys about the matchup tomorrow, Cowboys versus Washington. Let's start first with, what do you think was the biggest problem for the Dallas's defense when they played Washington the first time? They did allow 128 rush yards to Antonio Gibson. They also gave up a lot of big plays in the passing game. They had a 52-yarder, they had a 26-yarder, 22-yarder. Which do you think was the bigger problem, and which do you think they're more capable of correcting this time versus last time? Let's start first with you, Dave.
If you want me to be really honest, I question how much the want to was there against that on that day against that team. Like, that really for me was the biggest issue. I think that game, in a season that has been an absolute roller coaster, that game was a complete low point. I just think they no-showed, and I don't feel bad saying that because that was the day that DeMarcus Lawrence told Nick, we got to find our belief and our fight and our backbone. So if the all-pro defensive end thinks they were playing without a backbone that day, I agree, because that's what it looked like. So, I mean, you can't just show up and expect to win. Like, obviously, the Cowboys are not a great team, but I think if they play with the, physicality and the want to and the determination that we've seen the last 3 weeks, I think that in of itself will just lead to a better result than what we saw in that first game.
Amber.
I have a similar answer to that because to me, like my mind, it's so fuzzy and blurred out everything that happened in the past because of the recent game that we saw. I see this team completely, and I'm aware of the issues that the Cowboys still have, but we notice the difference of this team compared to several weeks ago. It's hard to compare what happened then to what it is now, because this team is finally starting to look a lot different. They are starting to look like an actual football, like NFL football team playing in the NFL. So it's just tough to just go back to that specific game and try to compare, because I think that the Cowboys are going to be playing a totally, not clean or perfect, but a totally competitive game this time around.
Yeah, I think that, you know, what both of them said is right, and also you got to remember that was the game that really just said, all right, enough is enough. That's when the Cowboys made the changes. We're tired of seeing this from Dontari Poe. You're out. We're tired of seeing this Worley, Everson Griffin, even though he made a sack in the. I'm tired of seeing all of it. You guys are out of here. We're changing this up, and you know, and we're seeing a more inspired football. We're seeing, you know, better play from the guys at that position. I mean, you know, Hamilton's playing better in the center there, and so is Gallimore. Dorrance Armstrong's playing better on the outside. Andy Gregory's now in here playing, and he's playing better and more and all that kind of stuff. So I just think that was the game that kind of said, all right, we got to make changes here, and that's, you know, those were 3 of the changes they made.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Leighton Vander Esch played 70% of the plays versus Minnesota, yet he led the team with 12 tackles. How much has the improvement of the defense been related to the healthy return of Leighton Vander Esch? Amber, you start.
I mean, Leighton had some amazing plays, some amazing stop at times that the Cowboys really needed it, especially right there in the end, in the red zone. So you can see the changes, and it sucks for me because, or I guess when I look at these things, I'm ready to say, okay, this player is done. When you see reoccurring injuries, in my mind, I'm like, okay, that's it, career. Like I thought Tyron Smith's career was over like 3 or 4 years ago, because I thought he couldn't handle all those back pains, and it has been an issue, but still he has played at an all-pro level when he's on the field. So I am one to judge way too quickly when it comes to injuries, but the fact that he's back on the field and now making plays and tackles that at times that the Cowboys really needed it, you can see the changes in the defense overall, especially at a position that has been a struggle all throughout this year. So I think that the fact that we're now seeing Leighton Vander Esch's game go up, it's really good and needed for the defense.
Nick.
Yeah, I mean, Leighton's not a guy that, you know, you want to just be sitting there on a long, you know, flight next to and have a big conversation. I mean, that's not what he's about. He's a serious-minded guy, but on the field, he makes a big hit like that. You can hear, you know, that he's excited, he's jacked up. I mean, his intensity, I think, feeds to the rest of the guys, and so that was evident even when they scored on that touchdown there. You could tell the Cowboys were hitting. I mean, they were hitting Dalvin Cook. It wasn't easy for him to get in, and I think, you know, no one likes moral victories and stuff like that or moral touchdowns, but there were some positives even on that drive, and I thought it was spearheaded by him.
Dave.
I don't have a whole lot to add. I agree with all of that. I think also maybe the way they're playing them, like it certainly seems like Mike Nolan. The way that they're shading those guys over the A-gaps as if to say, like, okay, we're really tired of just getting gashed up the middle of our defense. It seems like they've made a really concerted effort to deal with that. But, yeah, I mean, everything Nick just said. I mean, Leighton's physicality, especially down there in the red zone on the goal line, he packs a punch. Like, we give a lot of credit to Donovan Wilson. Leighton was a big part of that, too. And even more so than the turnaround, you know, yes, he deserves a lot of credit for the turnaround right now. I'm also starting to regain my confidence that he can be a major piece of your defense moving forward. Because that, you know, we talked so much in the offseason about his neck, and then he breaks his collarbone week 1. But from what we've seen while he's been able to play, he doesn't seem to be hampered by any sort of like long-term type of injury. You know, broken collarbone's kind of a freak thing. So I'm starting to get excited that he can be, you know, a centerpiece of this defense. Well, yeah.
It was a norm for Tony.
All right, so how much does...
You're not wrong.
I want to flip over to the offensive side of the ball. How much does the offensive line play that we saw against Minnesota change your expectations of what this offensive line can be down the stretch? And the bigger question is, do you still see this as much of a liability? Because I know for a lot of weeks, the offensive line was a liability, and it was the primary reason, in my opinion, why the team was not being able to do what they wanted to do. Nick, let's start with you.
Ask me Friday. I know we're not doing a show, but I'm just saying. But Minnesota is not Minnesota. I mean, we've talked about them. This is not their best defense. It was good. It was better than what we've seen. And the line was okay against Pittsburgh, but this is going to be the test. And we've already seen it a month ago that they failed miserably.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens here. And I think it'll be, for me, I'll have a better feeling about it if they go out and they score some points and score actual touchdowns and make drives and keep their quarterback alert after the game. Then
knowing his name,
right? Yeah. I think that'll be a huge step to say, this offensive line is turning the corner.
Dave.
I agree with all of that, although I will say, I'm very, very curious to see how they hold up against Washington. But it's not exactly we talk about how bad the opposition is moving forward. I mean, there's not like a murderer's row of like crazy good pass rushes. The Niners don't have Bosa this year. They traded away DeForest Buckner. Javon Kinlaw is just a rookie. The Eagles, they're good. I don't think they're as amazing as they were 2 or 3 years ago. Although, we talk about Fletcher Cox and Zach Martin. That'll be interesting to see. Like, is Zach Martin going to stay outside in a matchup where you have a guy like Fletcher Cox? But for the most part, after this game against Washington, like there's not this insanely scary pass rush on the schedule. So I'm optimistic. Maybe even if they struggle tomorrow, I'm optimistic that for the most part, I think they can hold their own against what's left on the schedule.
Amber.
I think so as well. And I mean, yes, the Minnesota defense, you might question their level compared to what we might be facing this week. But at the same time, I thought their defense played hard. I thought their defense brought it, and they were aggressive, and they were attacking. And the fact that the Cowboys were still able to make a stop, to stop them, and still be able to get the ball moving, get the running game moving, I see that as a great practice run for future games to come, because it was a game where the Cowboys had the ability and the chance to finally start seeing their running game moving, opening holes for Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, even the passing game getting going. So I think it's a great step forward, and I'm excited to see. Hopefully there are no more injuries in the near future, and hopefully they're able to find some stability there as far as health. But I think that was a great improvement, and I do like, as of right now, I don't see them as a liability at this point.
Let's go ahead and get into the picks for this week. Cowboys versus Washington football team. Who wins? What's the final score? Amber, let's start with you.
Cowboys, of course. I'm going to pick them this week. And they pull me back in, whatever. I might get slapped in the face, but we'll see. It's a Thanksgiving game. We know that Thanksgiving games, the energy always goes up, and it's an exciting game. So I think that the energy is going to be there. The drive, the will, the want, all of that. We're going to once again get to see a competitive football team. And it's going to be a close game, I think. But still, the Cowboys get the win. I think maybe something like 27-25. It's going to be pretty close, and they're going to be going at it back and forth throughout the game.
Nick?
I agree with the energy. I think the Cowboys will be there. It's going to be an emotional game, obviously, with everything that they've gone through this week. Not a lot of practice, not a lot of, preparation like normal. But I still think that they're able to kind of ride the momentum of last week's win, the adrenaline and emotion that's coming from the situation with Marcus Paul, and I think the Cowboys win this game 26-16. I think they're going to flip the course here. They're going to be better than Washington, and I think they win by 2 scores actually.
All right, Dave.
Well, I mean, just to build off that, for starters, I guess I didn't say it at the top of the show, but all my thoughts and prayers for Marcus and his family. Genuinely, one of the nicest people on the football side of the building. Just one of the friendliest guys. Which, if you've ever met a strength coach, they're not always super friendly people.
That's true.
Very true.
Marcus Paul absolutely is. So, thoughts and best wishes to him and his family. Sorry.
No. Make your pick. Sorry.
I mean, I can't shake the idea that this is going to be an ugly game just for all of the factors. I mean, so the Cowboys really haven't had a chance to practice. It's a short week anyway. Washington's traveling on a short week. Their pass rush is going to make it difficult. And Washington isn't that good, and I think the defense will play much more inspired and much better. Like, if Washington has anywhere near as good offensive success as they did in the first game, I'll be really surprised. So I think it's going to be kind of ugly, and I see the Cowboys winning it late, like 17-16, like maybe a field goal in the final 2 minutes, maybe a buzzer beater. I don't know, but an ugly win, but a win for the Cowboys.
All right, I look at this game, and I look at it from the standpoint that I think on short week, a lot of times these games are about which team just kind of can grit it out more. I mean, it's hard coming back. As you heard Bucky say earlier, your body doesn't start feeling right until Thursday on a typical week. That's game day. And so I think it really requires a team that's willing to dig deeper to be able to get the win, which means it's an emotional game. I think it's even more so on a short week. I look at that and I say, this is the kind of week where the kinds of things that this team has had to deal with this week, and I'm positive that they will be thinking of Coach Paul, and he will provide a certain amount of motivation for them. You hear it all the time. Football players play for something bigger than yourself, because it is a very physical game, and sometimes you have to dig deeper than just your skill. You have to get to the point where you're playing for something bigger than yourself, to will yourself beyond what you would normally be able to do. And that's where I think this makes a difference for this team. I think they end up getting a win in an emotional game, 26-20.
Yeah.
Did you have something, Nick?
Yeah, I think I didn't say this earlier about Marcus Paul, but I was kind of alluding to this, is that there's not a player that can say, when he gets asked about it, well, I don't really know that coach, or I didn't know. You know all of the strength, the strength coaches, them because of kind of what we were talking about before. So everyone has a relationship with him. Every single one knows about him and knows kind of what he stands for and all that. So, and like Dave said, I mean, you don't walk by the guy without him. It's different. Like I walked by him the other day after the game. He actually talked to me for a little bit and said, he was so relieved with the win and excited about it. And he had a mask on, and I guarantee his smile was right. Ear to ear, because that's just who he is. He's always smiling.
He has one of the best smiles.
He does. Yeah. He does, and you can see the smile through the mask. I mean, just one of those you just know, and especially there was a lot of smiles after that game. But and it was you could just see his relief of, man. I said, how you doing, Coach? And he said, man, I'm better now. And so, but obviously, not at this point. But we're hoping for the best here.
Absolutely. All right, that's a wrap. We will be back on Monday. We won't have any shows tomorrow or Friday. We'll be back on Monday. We'll tell you what went right and wrong for the Cowboys versus the Washington football team. We will also start at the same time starting to get you guys ready for Cowboys versus Ravens next Thursday night. Till then, for Nick Eatman, Dave Hellman, Amber Garcia, I am Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!